Welcome to Launching Successful VR and AR Games with Google with Mike Almeraris, Global VR and AR Gaming and Partnerships Lead, Google.
Cool. Thank you so much, guys. Big crowd today. So I'm on for 45 minutes, so I'm thinking that I'll actually talk for about 25 minutes, and then I'll open it up to Q&A, and I'm happy to answer anyone's questions, and there'll be mics floating around, so probably one on each side. Super bright. Awesome. So welcome. We're going to talk through kind of what we're doing with AR and VR from a Google perspective, how it relates to games and apps, and then how we're bringing the ecosystems to scale. And as part of that, how you guys can start thinking about design guidelines and what really makes quality and how you can bring quality to the stores and ultimately through distribution channels that we've created. Cool. So when you think about AR and VR and why it matters, from a Google perspective, we look at AR and VR as the fourth generation of computing. So if you think about that old supercomputer that kind of was sitting in the server room back in the 60s, that was the first generation of computing. If you think about Dell and what they managed to do with the PC in the 90s, that became kind of what we look at as the second generation of computing. If you go a step further and you start thinking about the phone, the supercomputer in your pocket, that's what we look at as the third generation. And when we look ahead in the next 3 to 5 years, we see AR, VR, and ultimately MR as that fourth generation of computing that follows you around in whatever form factor ends up really scaling down the line. So what have we done in this space? So we've done Daydream and Tango. So Daydream is our high quality, very immersive VR platform that runs off the phone. It's currently live. It went live in November, and we've seen huge success with it, and we're super excited. When it comes to Tango, Tango is our software that we build directly into OEM phones. And it's the software stack. And so we're really excited. We launched this with Lenovo, the Fab 2 Pro, in November as well. And you'll continue to see these platforms scale as we move through the ecosystem. So for us, when you think about Daydream, it's really not about a headset that you put on. It's really just about the standard of phones themselves. So it's all about making the phone itself Daydream ready so that you get more sustained performance, you get higher performance and sustained performance, which is super important. When you think about Tango, it's really just about 3 major pieces of technology that we actually built into the software stack. The first is around motion tracking, so allowing you to walk around an object. The second is around depth perception. When you see that object, it should be to scale, so allowing you to see King Kong's foot in the frame, and as you back out, you get to really see how large King Kong is. And then the third is about combining motion tracking and depth perception together to get what we like to call area learning. And area learning for us is being able to drop an object into this room, leave the building, leave the city, and come back 1, 3, 5 months later and have that object be exactly where you left it. So that's how we think about Tango when we think about augmented reality through the phones. So we built Storefronts for both through Google Play, and we're really, really excited about that from a distribution standpoint. So as more developers and more creators start creating content, this is the way that users will find them. So this is our Daydream Home. It's our new discovery option. So when you put your phone into the headset, this is what you see, and this is the content that comes out at you. So we have our discovery windows on the top, and we have your library running across the bottom. And most importantly, we have the little play button to take you into the VR Play Store, which you can actually see on the left-hand side of your screen. From a Tango perspective, we built collections directly into 2D Play, and today you can go find a ton of Tango apps, including EA Sims, which launched last week. So we're really, really excited about kind of the growth of the ecosystem and the continued sustained content we see coming in. From a Daydream perspective, we now have over 125 apps and games in the store, and that number continues to grow. And for any developer in the room, you can actually self-publish today right into the store, just as you would with any other mobile app or game. So again, really, really excited about what we've built and how easy we've made it. As part of that store, we've built in full IAP. So again, however you decide to charge customers is all fully built in, just as you would expect, with all analytics that follow. So we actually just launched, and I thought this would be a good time just to show kind of 3 quick games that just launched on our store. The first is by Minority. It's called The Other Room. The second is by Turbo Button. It's called Along Together. And the third is Ubisoft's Hungry Shark World. So we're really excited that they came to the platform and they continue to push new content. So I'll give you a little picture of each. So this is the other room. It's a VR escape room, Mindbender. It pits you against a mysterious, twisted genius. You use the Daydream controller to move, grab, manipulate, and examine objects. And then help them to solve puzzles one step closer as you continue uncovering your antagonist's identity, origins, and master plans.
Shutting it down.
It's a beautiful day in a beautiful mind. Such a beautiful moment.
The next one is Turbo Buttons Along Together. So it's a game about being a kid's imaginary friend. You work with them to solve puzzles and get past obstacles as they search for a lost companion. And you use the power of imagination to bend trees, lift boulders, and power incredible machines along the way. So again, the fidelity here is really, really great, especially when you're talking about just your phone and what you're able to get. The third is Ubisoft's Hungry Shark World, which you'll see here, which is part of the Hungry Shark series that just got reinvented exclusively for Daydream. So you get to explore life as a shark in a whole new way in this action-packed aquatic adventure. So you take on a journey of discovery and fight for survival in the underwater world. So we're really excited. All three of these went live, and we continue to see more games and apps come into the platform, which we know is important to keep users retained and keep them coming back looking for this type of content. So again, we have directions. This is all available, and we absolutely encourage developers and creators to put content onto our platform, just as you would with 2D Play. So as you're considering the following, like this is super important. I'm going to give just a couple of insights that we've found from a number of user studies that we've done that we think are really important. So I'll drop a few insights, and then I'll go through some of our guidelines after that. But the first is really when you think about a mobile phone, what you're really thinking about is short sessions. Multiple sessions a day. I can play from my bus ride for 3 minutes, or I can play when I get to work for 5 minutes. It's all about being on the go. This is very different from kind of VR itself. So when you're thinking about virtual reality, it's really about one session a day at home, 30+ minutes with 50% plus battery. And so we've done a whole study on this. So we know this is how you should be thinking about VR itself. So as you guys are thinking, what kind of content should I create? That's just a really interesting way to kind of think about what users' expectations are. When it comes to AR is going to look a lot more like mobile, right? Because it is on the go, it's part of your phone. So again, shorter kind of snackable experiences that you can really get into. So think sit-down meal, not snack. The message that I'm showing here is really about quality is paramount on mobile, and about 10x so on VR. So again, you really need to think about quality and the process that's going to go behind that so that we can actually enforce quality. The insight, too, that I really want to get across, and actually we're looking at this on our store today, it's really about every first impression matters. So every time a user tries VR for the first time, you get to define that impression of VR. So it's not just about one app. I had a bad game experience, I uninstall and I move on to the next one. It's about, I had a bad VR experience, I'm taking this headset off, and I'm never putting anyone else's headset on again because VR really made me sick. So when you guys are thinking about quality, you really need to think about motion intensity and locomotion as part of that. The third insight is really about novelty wears off by definition. So again, VR can be extremely novel, AR can be extremely novel. It's easy to blow a user or a player's mind for a few minutes. However, bringing them back on a daily basis is the hard part. And I think every one of us on the platform side, whether you're with Google or whether you're with one of the other platforms, we really need to kind of hit this point home because it's not just about, okay, that was cool for 10 minutes. You really want that user to make habitual use. The fourth insight I'm going to throw out is think window shopping, not grocery shopping. So when you think about how you push kind of your message or your app or your game or your video, user expectations are unclear, so expect them to come with kind of little intent. This means that your store listing is really, really key to making sure your app, game, or video stands out. So with that, word of mouth is also really key. So just make sure you're thinking about the defining moment that the user can actually see your piece of content and how you convey your message to them. Insight number 5 is really about virtual reality is meant to be experienced. So again, it isn't really appreciated until it is. So as you guys are really thinking about it, you should aim to provide a great kind of app or demo at the beginning of your experience so that users actually want to continue learning with you. Because from a user's perspective, it's really all about quality, environment, and duration. And so if you're putting high price tags up front, users are going to be a little scared by that. So you want to make sure you kind of ease them in and you help them define what the quality is, what the duration is going to be of whatever experience you've provided, and then what the environment's going to look like. And then my last insight is really about one experience, one purchase. I can't kind of stress this enough. We think about mobile and we think about mobile on the go, right? VR and AR may get there, but they're not there right now. So as you guys think about how do I price things, you really need to be thinking about one price tag. Whether that's right up front or whether that's in the middle after you've given some kind of free trial, that's really, really important that you're not constantly breaking immersion by asking the user to continuously pay for different types of currency. Cool. So from our perspective, it's really about high-quality content with narrative. It's about engaging the users beyond the novelty. It's really about letting users try your experience. And it's really about single kind of purchase to unlock the entire experience. So I'm just going to go through some quick design criteria that we've put in place. And then I'll open it up to questions, and I'm happy to take them from there. So from our perspective, when you do go to publish in the store, it is a little different from the current 2D Play Store today, where you can publish and your APK is searchable and discoverable. We do have a manual review process on the other side that's actually looking to make sure you're hitting the design guidelines. Again, going back to the point that if a user has a bad VR experience, it's a loss for the entire ecosystem and not just a loss for Google. So we want to make sure, being that we are kind of stewards at the price point we're at, that we're continuing to elevate expectations. So the first is really the basics. So app install. This one actually doesn't count because it's super baseline, but the reviewer needs to be able to install your app and actually use it to do the review. So you'd be surprised how many apps are coming through our store that just crash upon opening. So just make sure you're kind of looking at that. The second is really about performance. Does the app actually maintain 60 frames per second during sessions? So this one's really, really super important because it actually has to maintain that for our reviewers to pass it. Again, it's making sure users have a quality experience. The third is to never go to 2D, right? Somebody's in VR because they want to be in VR. That means they have to stay in VR. So you don't want to kind of jump back and forth because it is a barrier to entry of putting a headset on. The third is really about apps staying in landscape mode. So for us, if the user tilts their head, it's obviously really bad if the screen switches to portrait. So just be super mindful about that. The fourth is about using the immersive full screen mode. So we see an app where the system bar is in light and lights out mode, or they're just fully visible. So this is bad, and users can see it out in the corner of their eye. So again, just be mindful of that. The next are really around comfort. So for comfort, it's really about users can focus on the elements themselves. So again, you want them to actually focus on what you're showing them. The sixth is really about avoid placing objects so close to the user that they can't focus on them, and they end up getting double vision. So again, just kind of thinking of examples of what that would look like. The sixth for us is really about apps maintaining the head tracking. This one's really important that your app actually maintains it at all times, because a very common mistake that people make is that they lose head tracking, and everything freezes for a second when they go to a new scene. Again, not the greatest experience, and we've seen this happen a lot. The seventh for us is stable horizon line, right? This is kind of a no-brainer. I don't need to really explain it. But just going to leave this up for a minute while we establish the point. No one wants to be in a headset when this happens. And yes, this is from a real app. Users initiate movement, so moving the camera should be initiated by the user intent. And then again, honestly represent the content there. So make sure, we've seen this as well. Your descriptions and screenshots should actually accurately represent the nature of the app's content. So if you're doing a meditation app or a relaxation app, the user should enjoy sitting on a beach and the wind is blowing and everything is peaceful. There shouldn't be a zombie chainsaw in the description. And then the final three items are really about integrating well with Daydream. So again, think about the controller here. This is very, very important to us. To pass anything and actually publish it on our storefronts, you need to be thinking about the controller. And if you haven't tried Daydream, happy to take anyone aside after this and we can walk through it. The next one is that it has the actual VR icon, right? So you've seen this with the YouTube VR store. This is super important. We want to make sure we're telling users that this is a VR app or game or video. And then finally, your app needs to have a 360 photosphere screenshot to actually be shown in the store. So, and this is kind of what they look like. Again, just giving the user the full effect of what the content is that you're trying to convey. So that was my kind of 25 minutes of content, but I wanted to be able to actually interact with you guys. So I'd love to open it up to Q&A, because that's way more fun than listening to me talk. Where are my mic guys? Right here. Sweet. Thank you.
Apologies if this question comes from partially incomplete research. We were looking at developing an app with microtransactions before Daydream came out, and we were looking at the guys' work who made Bait on Gear VR, and thought it was terrific how the Gear VR platform supports a PIN entry to make purchases without having to take the headset off. And I was wondering whether you guys had solved that problem at an SDK level for us, or whether we have to build our own solution for that sort of thing.
Yep, great question. So question was around Bait. If anyone hasn't tried it, it's a fishing game by Resolution Games. It's a really great game. We are in the process of solving that at an SDK level so that you don't have to. You're welcome. That'll be coming out soon.
Hello. Hardware question. When and are the next Tango phones coming out, and are we seeing more phones that support both Daydream and Tango, or will they be more like going their separate ways? Thanks.
Great question. So for Daydream right now, there are there are now 5 phones that are currently Daydream ready and live to users. So you have the 2 Pixels, you have the Moto Z, you have the Huawei, and you have the ZTE. A 6th phone will be coming out at the end of this month, early next month, which will be the Asus phone. And the Asus phone will be both Daydream enabled as well as Tango enabled. Not integrated, but they do run both platforms. You'll see a bunch more phones that come out later this year that are Daydream ready, and we'll continue to push that ecosystem out. Our goal is that your phone should just run VR, and the point of purchase of a $50 headset after that is just incremental to the user's experience. From a Tango perspective, we have 1 phone live today that's Lenovo. The 2nd phone will be the Asus, and we'll continue to push that out as well. Now, obviously, with Tango, when you're talking about a software stack, it's a little harder to actually integrate that into the supply chain for the OEMs, so it takes a little longer. Do we expect phones to continue to grow? Absolutely, and we'll continue to push that with our own hardware as well as with our partner hardware. And you probably will see over the next year phones that continue to do both Tango and Daydream come out. And that for us is really important, because when you think about VR, but more importantly, when you think about AR, AR is going to be something kind of like Maps was, right? If everyone remembers, Maps just kind of showed up on your phone back in like 2007. You didn't know you needed it till the point in 2010 where you can't live without Maps, right? Because then the use case was there, and that's what we'd love to see with AR happen as well. So we just want AR to work on your phone, and then as use cases come out, you steadily can't live without it, and that's kind of our vision. So yes, more phones are definitely coming across both platforms.
Hey, how's it going? So I'm 16 years old. I'm really just wanting to get into this development process, and I know there's many developers here. So my question is, for developers or people getting into the market, why should we all consider Google to develop over like the competitors like Oculus or HTC, and how is Google going to shape the market? Great
question. So right now we're I'm assuming your question was about VR, so we'll keep it to VR. When you look at the market today, it's kind of fragmented. There's HTC, there's PlayStation, there's Rift, there's Gear, there's us, and there's probably a ton of other competitors that'll start trickling over from Eastern Asia over the next year or 2. As developers, you shouldn't be picking up, like, what I would tell you is you shouldn't be picking a platform, right? Because there's no clear winner on a platform today. You should actually be making your content platform agnostic. So a good example was Bait, right? Bait's available for Gear, Bait's available for Google, Bait's gonna be available on HTC. Like, that's how you should be thinking about it. It should be, how do I actually get the most users engaging with my content as possible? And right now, we're not at the point where there's a clear winner. For us, we're very invested in mobile VR because we believe in scale. We've always done that as Google. When you think about Rift or Vive, you're always going to be talking about a smaller market size because you have to have that PC that you're tethered to at this point until future announcements are made. So you're talking about a smaller ecosystem, right? But you're going to get higher fidelity. So it's also not only about getting your content to as many platforms as possible, it's also about choosing the platform that's going to make your content stand out. So if you need your content to run at 90, 100, 110 frames per second, you're probably not going to run it on a mobile phone because the SoC power just isn't high enough for that. But if you want to put content out that gets seen by as many eyeballs as possible, you're probably thinking mobile. So it's always going to come down to one, I would tell you be platform agnostic as much as you can because there is no clear winner. And two, I would tell you to actually base your choice on the content that you're building. Cool.
Hi, Mike. I wanted to know about the non-game content.
Yep.
Two things. One is how it's featured in the store. Is
Yep.
it categorized? Is there a taxonomy and how users go navigate that taxonomy? And what you think is the best non-game content to be looking at?
Great question. So of my 125 apps and games that I have in the store, about give or take 38 to 40% of those are apps, non-games. The other kind of 60% are games because that's where developers are kind of starting when it comes to VR. So there is a lot of non-gaming content in the store. When it comes to the way we frame our store, we have what are called discovery windows, and we set those up so that there is always one discovery window that's focused on video. What we've learned in our research is how important video and more passive experiences are to users who are going in VR. They want to interact lightly. And so for us, we always want to have the option of having some kind of 360 or VR video available to them right at the front, right at the top of the screen. And for us, and I'll just answer your second question, we believe YouTube VR is the killer app. And that is why we've pushed it to all the platforms. So you see it on PlayStation now, you'll see it on Rift, because we actually believe that is what's going to drive habitual use. It's not going to be this particular game or that particular game. It's really going to be video watching to start, and then we'll see that kind of grow over time. When it comes to the store setup, you usually see a video, you usually see an app, and you usually see a game. And we have an algorithm that runs that. And that's, again, to show you variety of content that's out there, so it's not all games. And then we have a series of collections when you get in the VR Play Store itself, just like you would with the 2D Play Store, where we tell you these are apps that are free to try, these are games that are fun for the whole family, and the collection list goes on, but they're categorized for you so you can find a ton of content.
So besides like skateboarding and besides like skateboarding videos and skiing and people with GoPros or their little 360 Kodaks or Ricos.
Yep.
I mean, that seems like it also can get people kind of sick if you do too much of that. So what are your recommendations for 360 videos?
So check out what we just put on the store this week, which is our foodie series. So there's a lot of capture going on, right? On the YouTube side, and even with our camera strategy, we've been putting out a lot of cameras to help capture production quality assets. Even on the YouTube side, we have a review process, so not all videos, skateboarders with their Ricoh Theta are going to show up in our store and going to be found by users. We're really looking for kind of higher level production quality because we, again, need to be very mindful of getting users sick. So we're always trying to push kind of the higher level content out there. But I would definitely encourage you to check out the foodie series that we launched this week because those are the type of kind of short 3, 5, 7 minute vignettes that people are going to, that we're finding people are really loving. You're welcome.
Over here. Hello, my name is Daniel Coleman. I represent a company called Motion. We do gesture tracking technology using an RGB camera from the mobile phone.
Cool.
Unfortunately, you have covered the lid on the Daydream headset.
Yes.
Do you have any plans to release a new headset where you open up that possibility? Or?
Yeah, so you're asking about the pass-through camera for everybody else. We did make the choice of closing the pass-through camera for now. I cannot comment when or if we'll be reopening that pass-through camera up. But again, you can imagine a world in 3 to 5 years where the headset is no longer the form factor, and something like this becomes the form factor, and your pass-through camera is absolutely open because I should be able to walk down the street, see reality, I should be able to augment that reality with voice at any given moment, but then I should be able to completely shade out reality and go virtual when I want to. So if you believe that is where form factors are going, then you know we eventually have to open up the pass-through camera.
Yeah, it's just a matter of when.
Good question.
Hi, I've just a question to VR, non-gaming content and length. As far as I understood, you said it's 3 to 7 minutes is the length which you recommend. But are you seeing, or did you have some trials with longer lengths, like 20 minutes or 30 minutes?
So for us, it's always a decision of how long the user wants to be in VR for, and the battery life on their phone, and how much the content is using the performance of the phone. So we say 3 to 7 minutes because that's a good experience for the user, where then they can go and look at something else or go to another kind of set in the series. But we see users watching movies in VR, right? And they'll stay in there, plug their battery into the wall, and stay in there for 90 plus minutes. So it's just about the kind of content that you're creating, because a user is willing to stay in VR. We see an average of around 25 to 30 minutes per session, but we've definitely seen users watching movies. Netflix has been great for that. So again, it's also about the content that you're creating. We say 3 to 7 because that's what we're seeing on YouTube right now, and we see that as kind of the sweet spot for YouTube videos. But again, if it's actual like serial content, then you're probably going to want longer.
I got one over here, hold up.
Thanks. Now, I had a question about virtual reality development.
Cool.
And so, would I be able to do something as far as development through something like Android Studio for virtual reality?
Not at this time.
Okay. What's a recommended integrated developer environment, you would say?
So right now we're partnering heavily, just like everyone else, with Unity and Unreal. But obviously those platforms are expensive for smaller devs. But right now that's kind of where we're focusing. We're also going to open that integration up to the other engines that are out there. So we've been talking to Autodesk. We've been talking to, well, CryEngine, wherever that is now, Amazon. So for us, it's about opening the platform as wide as we can because we want all developers to get there. But I would say a good starting point is Unity or Unreal because they're fully integrated at this point.
Cool, thanks.
And again, going back to my message around platform agnostic, Unity and Unreal are kind of the industry standard for all platforms. So that'll help you actually push out. You're welcome.
Can you talk a little bit about monetization of the apps and whether you're seeing like games do free to play and how those are monetizing, or whether you're having other apps as like is a subscription model open, like if you had like a kids thing and a kids product?
Yeah, great question. So this is something, and I'll be completely transparent, this is something everybody is working on trying to figure out, right? I don't have the silver bullet answer for you, and I don't think anyone else from a platform perspective can give you the silver bullet answer today. What we're seeing on our platform is, from a games perspective, probably about 70% of our games are premium games. They're priced right at the beginning where you have to pay before you go into them. We see about 30% of the games non-paid. From an app perspective, other than your Hulus and your Netflixes, everything else is kind of free right now. Users are tending toward free content, right? Because again, they're unsure of quality, duration, and environment. And so this is why, when I was going through it before, it's really, really important that you guys start thinking about the try before you buy model, which is, we do agree that VR content is a lot more expensive to make than mobile content. So we know that there has to be kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. But we really do encourage, and what we've seen is apps and games that do give away a little bit of content up front before they make a user charge see a lot higher of a usage rate, right? Because then users are actually more willing to spend the money. If you have a high price tag at the beginning, there's two problems with that. One, you scare some users from actually entering the game, and we know that, or entering the app. And the second thing that happens is users will actually rate you, like not in the politest kind of way if you put a heavy price tag up front, and then they hate your game for whatever reason. So I definitely encourage folks to kind of think about pricing. Our idea is try before you buy because we've seen that work really well. But again, you should have a paywall in there from the moment that you feel like you've given enough content away for right now. But I would say that's gonna be a moving target for the next 2 to 3 years.
What do you think is the sweet spot on price now? Do you have any ideas?
It's going to come down to which platform, right? Mobile is very different from desktop. From us, what we see in our bell curve is probably in the 95% confidence interval has most folks pricing between $399 and $599. And users seem to be good with that. You can read the reviews. They review it a lot better. when you start pricing at $10, $12, the expectation has grown, and unless you have a very heavy brand that users know and they know what kind of quality you're going to deliver, I'd be a little worried to go that high. Cool, I'm going to take 2 more questions, only because I know I'm going to run out of time.
Hey, this is a good follow-up to your last question. Previous person asked about doing in-app purchases without the SDK being available today to be able to do in-app purchases.
Yep.
So how would you recommend doing the try before you buy strategy without having to take your phone out of the Daydream view to actually
So
make
it's
the
all
purchase?
so that's actually integrated right now. So you can do that as you build. It's all in there. So it's all pin code. So again, you'll put your digit number in, and you can buy without taking the headset off. That's super important for anybody, right? No one wants to be kind of shuffling around. Last question. I see.
I'm a school teacher, and we're talking about designing classes for our students, and we're pretty good at the high school level. We're going to design for the full-fledged headsets. When we think about middle school and elementary school and wanting kids to get involved in this, it starts to get crazy to think about buying 25 or 30 phones that do 1,000 things if we just want them to do VR and AR. Do you know of any partners that are building a dedicated device that would be like a small 3DOF kind of use the Google Play content, but I don't need to buy a full phone to do that?
Yeah, the answer is Mattel's ViewMaster can do a little bit of that. You can also look at things like Cardboard. The other part is on any of our headsets, whether it's Google or anyone else in the market, I believe PlayStation has the lowest age bracket of 12 plus. We're 13 plus, and most folks are 13 plus. So you want to be careful there. When it comes to something like Cardboard, Cardboard works on now over 55 plus phones. So most of your students probably already have a cell phone, or maybe. So when you're thinking about middle school students, Cardboard is a great way to get them involved. Gives you access to the entire library on the Play Store, so you can take them there with you. And Cardboard itself is anywhere between free to $10, depending on where you get it. And again, it works over 50 plus phones today. So I would encourage you to look at Cardboard. You're welcome. Cool. Well, thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate y'all staying in here.